I never imagined things would end like this. You know, there's that one moment in life when everything goes from perfectly fine to falling apart, and you can't stop it. I never thought it would happen in my marriage, but here we are. The thing is, when you start noticing the signs, the little changes, the unexplained absences, you can't ignore them. It all started so innocently. I was finishing up a workout at the gym, just like I do every evening. I'd come home, grab a quick shower, and then head out to grab a drink with some friends. But that night, something felt different. I walked into the house, and it was eerily quiet. Sarah should have been home, maybe cooking or watching TV, but the place felt empty. No greeting, no sounds, just silence. I called her name, but there was no answer. I walked around, checked the rooms, still nothing. Then, I saw it, her phone, sitting on the kitchen counter, buzzing with a notification. I know, I shouldn't have looked. But when your gut tells you something is wrong, who can resist? I grabbed the phone. It was a message, an unread one, from a name I didn't recognize. I shouldn't have unlocked it, but I did anyway. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight, babe. You're always on my mind. We'll be together soon." My stomach dropped, like the world had stopped. I didn't want to believe it, but how could I ignore it? Sarah, my wife, could she really be cheating on me? My heart was racing as I opened the conversation. Every part of me screamed to stop, to put the phone down and walk away. But I couldn't. I was in too deep. I scrolled through the conversation, and there it was. She had been seeing someone else, and not just anyone. It was someone from her past, someone she told me had no place in her life anymore. I stood there, frozen, for what felt like an eternity. A knot tightened in my chest, and my hand was trembling as I set the phone down. I wanted to scream, to break down, but all I could do was stand there in shock, numb. What was I supposed to do next? The betrayal was like a gut punch, but worse. I didn't know who I was more angry with, Sarah or myself for not seeing it sooner. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to keep it together. I needed answers, I needed to confront her. But how? When? And what the hell was I supposed to say? Just as I was trying to calm myself, I heard the door open. Her voice called my name, and I knew it wasn't going to be good. She walked in, wearing that fake smile, the one she always put on when something wasn't right. I looked at her and asked the only question I could manage, "Who, babe?" "Sarah?" Her smile faltered for just a second, just a brief moment, but that was enough. It was the first crack in the illusion she had built. I could feel my pulse racing, the tension in the room thick as smoke. I couldn't breathe. The question was simple, yet somehow, it felt like everything hinged on that one moment. "Who, babe?" "Sarah?" She stopped in her tracks, her face flickering with something I almost thought was panic. But before I could be sure, she quickly masked it, smoothing out her expression with that perfect mask she'd perfected over the years. It was like flipping a switch, and suddenly, I was left in the dark, trying to figure out what had just happened. She took a step closer, her eyes wide and apologetic, almost too rehearsed. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her voice so sweet it made my skin crawl. I couldn't look away from her. There was no point in pretending anymore. The evidence was right in front of me, and here she was, acting as if nothing had happened. "I'm talking about the text messages, Sarah," I said, trying to steady my voice. "The ones from the guy you've been sleeping with. The one who can't wait to see you tonight. Who, babe? Who is it?" Her expression faltered again, but this time, she didn't bother to hide it. Her lips curled into a smug grin, one that made my blood boil. "You really think I'm cheating on you?" she asked, her tone dripping with sarcasm. "You really think I'd do that?" I felt a surge of frustration hit me. "Don't play dumb. I know what's going on, Sarah. The messages, the lies, the hours you've been gone with him. I gestured to the phone on the counter, now burning a hole in the air between us. Tell me you're not sleeping with him. She rolled her eyes, as if my suspicions were laughable. You're being paranoid, Jason. You always do this when you're stressed about work. I told you, I'm not doing anything wrong. Her words were so smooth, so rehearsed. It was like she had said them 1,000 times before. She wasn't just lying to me, she was making me feel like I was the one in the wrong. I wanted to scream, to shake her until the truth came out. But instead, I stood there, stunned, frozen in place. The betrayal felt like a weight on my chest, suffocating me. And all I could do was watch her lie straight to my face. You're really good at this, aren't you? I muttered, my voice barely above a whisper. All these years, I never saw it coming. She laughed, but it wasn't a laugh of amusement. It was a laugh of mockery. What, you think I'm going to admit it to you just like that? After all these years of you being so clueless? Please, Jason, get over yourself. You're just upset because I finally found someone who actually knows how to make me feel wanted. My heart sank, and the words hit me harder than I expected. I thought I had prepared myself for this moment, the lies, the excuses, the hurt. But hearing her say that, hearing her admit so coldly that I wasn't enough for her, it shattered something inside of me. Is that what this is about? I asked, my voice cracking. You don't love me anymore, so you go and cheat with him? With some guy from your past? Her eyes narrowed, and she took a step closer, as if preparing to lecture me. Jason, don't act like you're some innocent angel in all of this. You think I don't know about all the nights you've been too busy with work to even look at me? The nights you've come home, barely acknowledging that I'm even here? I opened my mouth to respond, but she didn't let me. I've been here, stuck in this house with you, playing this game we call marriage. And you've done nothing but ignore me. And when I finally found someone who gave me attention, who actually listened to me, well, I couldn't resist. Her words hit me like a slap across the face. She was turning it around on me, making me the bad guy, as if somehow I had caused this. You're blaming me for your choices? I asked, my voice shaking with anger. You're the one who went behind my back. You're the one who betrayed me. Don't try to make this about me. You did this, Sarah. You did this to us. She scoffed, shaking her head in disbelief. You really don't get it, do you? You never really paid attention to me. To us. And now you're upset because I finally decided to live my life. Because I finally did something for me. I wanted to scream at her, but instead, I just stood there, feeling numb. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I couldn't believe how casually she was defending her actions, as if this were all my fault, as if I had somehow deserved this. I took a deep breath, trying to regain some semblance of control. I want you to leave, I said, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. I don't want you here anymore. I can't do this. I won't do this. Her expression hardened, and for the first time, I saw something flicker in her eyes, something I couldn't quite place. Anger? Fear? But whatever it was gone as quickly as it appeared. She stood there for a moment, lips pressed tight, before she finally spoke. Fine, she said, voice cold. You want me to leave? I'll leave. But don't think for a second that I'm the one who ruined this. This was never going to work, Jason. You just never knew it. With that, she grabbed her things and walked out the door, leaving me standing there in a mess of emotions. A part of me wanted to run after her, to beg her to stay, to fight for us. But the other part of me, the part that had been betrayed and crushed, knew that I couldn't. I wouldn't. And so, she left. And I was left to pick up the pieces of a life I thought I knew. This was just the beginning. The hours dragged on like they were days. Each one felt heavier than the last. I sat on the couch, staring at the empty space where Sarah had been just moments ago. Her absence hurt more than her presence ever had. The silence in the house was suffocating, like a weight pressing down on my chest. It felt like a stranger's home now, foreign and cold. I couldn't escape the sound of her words, echoing in my mind. This was never going to work, Jason. She was gone. And I was left with nothing but the hollow ache in my chest. I went into the kitchen, grabbed a bottle of whiskey from the cabinet, and poured myself a drink. I needed something to numb the pain, to quiet the thoughts that kept spiraling through my mind. How long had this been going on? How many nights had she been sneaking around, lying to me, pretending? I thought back to the last few months, trying to make sense of it all. The late nights at work. The sudden trips with her friends. The way she stopped looking at me the same way. It was like she had already checked out. Already decided she was done with me, before she even made the decision to betray me. That thought alone made me furious. How could she do this to me? How could she betray everything we had built together? Everything we had been? But I couldn't afford to stay angry forever. I needed answers. I needed to know the truth. All of it. And then, my phone buzzed. I almost didn't want to look. But I had no choice. It was her. Sarah. She was calling. She wanted to talk. Part of me was so sick of her lies, so tired of her manipulation, that I almost didn't answer. But another part of me, the part that still loved her, despite everything, needed closure. I needed to hear her say it out loud. To admit what she had done. "Hello?" I said, my voice rough. "Jason, we need to talk," she said, her voice smooth, rehearsed, like she had already practiced this conversation 100 times. "Yeah, we do," I replied, my voice tight with anger. "You left. You made your choice. What else is there to say?" There was a pause. For a second, I thought maybe, just maybe, she would apologize. But I knew better. Apologizing was never her thing. Instead, she continued in that same, sickly sweet tone, "I didn't want it to end like this, but you left me no choice." No choice? I snapped, gripping the phone tighter. "You think I left you no choice? You're the one who cheated. You're the one who made that decision. Don't put this on me." I could almost hear her roll her eyes. "Jason, calm down. You're being dramatic. It's not like I cheated because I hate you. I needed something more. Something you weren't giving me anymore." "You mean attention or respect?" I shot back, my voice steady. "Is that what you needed, Sarah? Because you sure as hell didn't give me much of either." She sighed, exasperated. "This isn't about you being a bad husband, Jason. It's not even about him. It's about me, okay? I needed to feel wanted. I needed to feel alive again. And you were too busy with your work, too distracted by everything else but me." Her words hit me like a punch to the gut. The audacity of her, to sit there and talk like I had neglected her, like her infidelity was somehow justified, it was beyond anything I could have imagined. "You wanted to feel alive? Is that your excuse?" I asked, my voice trembling with anger. "You think that makes it okay? You think betraying your husband, betraying me, is somehow justified?" There was a pause, like she was carefully considering her response. Then she spoke again, her tone colder, more defensive. "Look, Jason, I don't owe you any explanations," she said, her voice hardening. "We've been miserable for a long time now. Maybe you didn't want to see it, but I was suffocating in this relationship. You didn't see me. Not really. You didn't see how much I needed you. Wanted you." The words twisted in my stomach, and I struggled to control myself. "I saw you, Sarah," I said through clenched teeth. "I saw you every day. I gave you everything I had. I loved you. I still love you, despite all of this. But you? You just used me. Used me until you found someone else who could give you the attention you were chasing." She scoffed. "I didn't use you, Jason. I didn't owe you anything. If you want to blame someone, blame yourself for not being enough." That was it. She said it, and in that moment, everything clicked. All the hurt, the confusion, the disbelief flooded my chest. She was never going to take responsibility for what she did. She had already decided I wasn't enough. I felt disgusted, betrayed, and yet, somehow, I was still numb. "You don't get to talk to me like that," I said, my voice trembling with fury. "You don't get to throw all the blame on me. You made your choice. Now live with it. We're done, Sarah." There was a long pause, and I waited, not knowing if she would respond or if this would be the end of everything. Finally, she spoke, her voice cold and detached. "Fine," she said. "If that's what you want, then we're done. I don't have time for this. I've made my choice. I'm not looking back." She hung up, and just like that, the phone call ended. Her words lingered in the air, suffocating me, pressing me further down into the pit she had dug for both of us. But in that moment, I knew it was time to let go. There was nothing left to fight for. The worst part? It wasn't even the betrayal. It was the fact that Sarah, the woman I thought I knew, never cared enough to fight for me. She was gone. And I was left to pick up the shattered pieces of my heart. But one thing was clear, I was done being her fool. This was only the beginning of my journey to reclaim my life. The silence in the house was deafening. More suffocating than I could have ever imagined. I stood there, the phone still in my hand, staring at the screen, expecting her name to pop up again. But it didn't. She was gone. Her words echoed in my mind, each one sharper than the last. "I'm not looking back." I had known, somewhere deep inside, that this moment was coming. For months, I had felt the cracks in our relationship widening, but I ignored them. I kept telling myself things would get better, that Sarah and I would find our way back to each other. But standing in the wreckage of our marriage, I realized I had been living in a fantasy she had long since abandoned. I sank into the couch, my hands shaking. It was like my body had betrayed me too, the weight of the emotions threatening to crush me. Anger. So much anger. How could she do this to me? To us? To everything we had built together? How could she just toss everything aside like it was nothing? I had given her everything, and now she was out there with another man, living her life while I sat here, broken. But there was something deeper. A pain that went beyond betrayal. The loss of trust, the loss of the woman I thought I knew, the woman I had loved with everything I had. Now, that woman was gone, and I was left holding the pieces of a shattered heart. I grabbed the bottle of whiskey from the counter, pouring myself another drink. It burned as it slid down my throat, but I didn't care. I needed something to numb the ache, to silence the whirlwind of thoughts racing through my head. How had I not seen it? How had I missed all the signs? The late nights. The distance. The lies. But even though I wanted to wallow in my anger, I knew something had to change. I needed to take back control. I needed to find myself again, no matter how much it hurt. The journey ahead wouldn't be easy, but I was done letting Sarah, or anyone, define my worth. It was time to heal.